Welcome back everybody. Today we are doing my top 20 most worn fragrances for 2022. Let's get into it. In number 20 spot is Memoir Woman by Amouage. I only have a decant of this one and this is literally nearly done. I've got only a few more drops left, so maybe one or two wears. This is a fantastic ambery fragrance. It's quite spicy, it's very woody, and it's very green. It's also just a tiny bit smoky. I really love this fragrance. It is so mysterious and enigmatic, and I find that it actually works in the heat as well as the cold weather. So I'm looking forward to upgrading to a bigger bottle at some point in the very near future. In the number 19 spot, we have Panthea Iris by Stefan Umberlicus. This is a really lovely musky iris fragrance. There's quite a lot of violet in here as well, which is unsurprising given that it's an iris dominant fragrance. There is also a tiny bit of citrus and some jasmine as well. And there's also a tobacco note, which just gives it quite a bit of depth, but it's not a dark fragrance. It's very light, very fluffy. And it's surprising to me that this is so far down in the list, but I did stop wearing this around mid-year because I was doing a no-buy year in 2022, and I was worried that I was going to wear all the way through it because this was pretty much all done this year. So that is Panthea Iris. In the number 18 spot, we have Ylang Ylang Nosy Bee by Paris Monte Carlo. Madagascar vanilla, beautiful, luscious Ylang Ylang. This is just a heavenly vanilla-based fragrance and not something that I would have thought I would have gravitated towards because it is so big on the vanilla. But it really just wears so beautifully. That Ylang Ylang just blends so gorgeously in here. In the number 17 spot, we have Ooh La La by Théo Cabanel. This is such a stunning, comforting sandalwood fragrance with a very dominant iris note and also a hint of hazelnut as well. It's soft, it's velvety, it has very good staying power, but it's like wearing a very soft cashmere jumper on the couch on a really cold winter's day. I love this one for nighttime and for the cooler months. In the number 16 spot, we have L'air du Désert Marocain by Andy Tower. This is a really beautiful, spicy, dry amber fragrance. It is quite earthy. It also has a beautiful rose note going through it and just a hint smoky. I really, really adore this one. I used to think that Au Cœur du Désert was my favorite of the two, but I feel like this year I have really come to understand this fragrance much more, and in fact, I have been gravitating towards this one more than Au Cœur du Désert. I love them both, but this one I'd have found to be more wearable for me this year. The next one, which I believe is the number 14 spot, I am trying to keep count here, is Narciso Rodriguez Eau de Toilette in the Cube. This also happens to be an empty for me this year. I finally managed to finish this one up. I've had this bottle since the year it was released. I bought it in an airport and I was attracted by the stand, which had, you know, all of the launch material on it. This is a beautiful musky woody rose, I believe. There's a bit more of a woody element in this one compared to some of the other Narciso Rodriguez fragrances, particularly the For Her line. I find this one to be much more unisex. It's very refreshing, even for a musky scent, and I have really, really enjoyed wearing this. Unfortunately, it is now discontinued, I believe, so I will be retiring this bottle, and I have very fond memories of this fragrance. In the number 13 spot, we have Ambre Narguile by Hermès. This is a very pleasant, sweet, cinnamony amber fragrance. It is a little reminiscent of apple pie or apple crumble to me, without the apple note necessarily, but there is just a beautiful baked spice feel about this without it leaning too gourmand for me. It is one of the more sweeter ambers that I do enjoy. I find it very, very comforting. This bottle still looks quite full, and that is because it is new. Most of the wears that I had of this fragrance throughout this year has been through a decant, and I really loved wearing this after a hot yoga session first thing in the morning. I just found it to be really, really comforting. So that is Ambre Narguile. Next up is Shalimar Philtre de Parfum. This is a bit of a furphy actually, because Yes, I did wear this quite a bit, and I probably wore this more than any of my other Shalimars, although I did wear the Eau de Parfum a fair bit to bed during the year. This is like a lighter version of Shalimar, slightly heavier than the Eau de Toilette, but I would say the scent profile leans more towards the Eau de Toilette than the Eau de Parfum because it doesn't have that heavy citrus oil element in the top. But this also has an amped up iris note. So we all know I'm a bit of a sucker for iris. So that is why I was so excited when this fragrance got released. I absolutely love this one. However, there is another one that I got more recently, which I have worn a lot in the last few weeks, and consequently, that has taken over this one. But I do have to confess that my wear recording skills did drop off in December, and I wasn't keeping up with recording my daily perfume wear as consistently as I was for the rest of the year. Anyway, but that was Shalimar Philtre de Parfum. It's a very beautiful version of Shalimar, still probably my favorite after, of course, the Eau de Toilette and the original Eau de Parfum. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance. Next, we have one that became a gateway to me for fragrances of this kind of ilk, which typically previous to discovering this fragrance, I really wasn't into them at all. But this is Delina La Rosée. This is a really lovely, watery, fresh version of Delina, and my relationship with this fragrance really has been a little bit up and down. I originally discovered this fragrance through a decant that came in a perfume subscription. I wore it and I really enjoyed it, so I ended up buying a bottle. And then for the first few weeks of having the bottle, I didn't really enjoy wearing it that much, and I think it was because I was just simply putting too much on. When I'm spraying from a decant, you don't actually get as much from the atomizer as you do from the full bottle wear. And I just found that I was just spraying too much of this on, and the more I sprayed on, the more likely I was to get that really aquatic note, which to me, if there's too much of it, it sort of goes in stagnant water territory, which is not pleasant for me. However, once I figured out how to wear it from the full bottle, I fell in love with it. And I think I got this late last year, so possibly around the beginning of summer. So there's quite a sizable dent in that from my perspective. Next up, we have one that I actually bought a backup bottle of last year, and I don't normally do backup bottles, but I was ripping through this particular bottle very quickly, and I anticipated that I was actually going to run out of this year. So I bought another bottle of it, a really big one. And as it turns out, I didn't wear it as much as I thought I was going to, but obviously it's still in my top 20. In fact, I think it might be number 11. So it obviously has been worn quite a bit, but just goes to show how much you really use in a year. So this is New Look 1947 by Maison Christian Dior. There is a little bit of a dent. This is a 40ml bottle. Most of that occurred probably last year, actually, when I first bought this bottle, and I just wore it heaps. This is a really beautiful, slightly powdery white floral fragrance. There's jasmine and tuberose in here. However, to me, I feel like I get more of the ylang ylang than I do of the tuberose and the jasmine. There's also a little bit of rose, I think, and maybe a couple of other florals. But what I really love about this fragrance is this beautiful, spicy benzoin note coupled with vanilla in the base. It's sweet, but it's also got this little bit of spice to it, and just mingled in with that ylang ylang and the other florals. It is really just quite a stunning fragrance. And again, just a slight hint of powderiness, not too much. It's just such a comforting scent. It's very light and airy, but I do prefer to wear this in the evenings or on cooler days. In the number 10 spot, we have one that I don't have a full bottle of again. I just have a little travel spray decant of this, which was actually sent to me by the perfume house when I bought a different bottle. And I had requested if they had any smaller formats of this particular fragrance. They didn't, but they made up a couple of decants for me, which I thought was very generous. So this is Desert Rosewood by Goldfield and Banks. And I am surprised actually to see this in the number 10 spot, because I was thinking back over the year and I was thinking, I don't remember wearing it that much. But actually how I wore this was layered with another fragrance that is in the top 10. So I didn't wear this a lot just on its own, but I did layer it with something else and it was a beautiful combination. I do adore this fragrance. This is actually the first fragrance from the Goldfield and Banks line that I fell in love with. And the first bottle that I bought from them actually was White Sandalwood, which is the bottle they sent me when they sent me these decants. I thought that might be more wearable all year round, whereas this one I felt probably suited more winter conditions. So that is why I have not bothered to buy it yet. And then of course I have these decants that they sent me, so I don't need a full bottle just yet, but I do really, really love this fragrance. And I should probably tell you what it smells like. What it smells like is, it is quite woody. It has Palo Santo rosewood in it, but also has a hefty dose of cardamom. Palo Santo rosewood, I don't actually know what Palo Santo rosewood is, but I do know what rosewood is, and rosewood has a very beautiful, rich fragrance to it. It also is quite soft, it's not too dry, and I think it also has a bit of a sweetness to it, just naturally, in addition to the other elements of this fragrance, which impart a little bit more sweetness. So it is woody, but not too dry. It's a little bit green from the cardamom, and this is another one that has a fairly decent dose of benzoin in it. So I just really love that spicy vanillic kind of smell of the benzoin coupled with the woods, which are dark but not too dark, has a lot of depth. It's a really beautiful fragrance, and I definitely can see myself upgrading to a full bottle once I finish this decant. Matt also really likes this one, but because I have this decant that's unlabeled, he doesn't know what it is, and so he rarely ever wears it, which is good for me. In the number 9 spot, we have one that I got for my birthday this year. This is Amouage Honor 43. So I have worn this a lot in the past 6 months, because basically my birthday's in July. This is a really luscious but also fresh white floral fragrance. It's very big on the jasmine, very big on the tuberose, but there is just a freshness about this. It has a green tone to it. There is a rhubarb leaf and cardamom as well in here. Definitely get that greenness coming through. The white florals possibly lean a little bit indolic, at least in the opening, but they dry down very clean and very fresh and very bright. It's very luscious, it's creamy, it lasts a really long time. I absolutely adore this fragrance. I have been living in it this year. But of course you do have to enjoy white florals in order to enjoy this fragrance, which I obviously do. So that is Honor 43 by Amouage. Number 8 in this list is one that I no longer have the bottle for. It is 811 Absoluto by Giovanni Antonelli. It's quite spicy. It's got a lot of clove in the top. It's quite dark. I personally read a lot of dark fruits and patchouli from that fragrance. There was a honey note in there as well, and I just absolutely adored it. I found it to be so addictive, and I definitely am keen to pick up a full bottle of that this year if I can. I thoroughly enjoyed wearing that fragrance, and every time I would put it away and then come back to it a few weeks or a few months later, I would just fall in love with it over again. It truly was to me quite a special fragrance, and it just hit all the right spots. It had a little bit of sweetness, it had that dark fruity spiced fruit vibe, it had the patchouli, which wasn't too green and it wasn't too screechy. It was very soft and kind of woody leaning. It was just beautiful, really, really beautiful, very resinous, and I can't wait to smell it again. In the number 7 spot, I am so pleased to report, is a fragrance that was discontinued and now it's being brought back, and I'm very, very happy about that. I'm super curious to try the new version. This is Shangri-La by Hiram Green, and oh my word, the lengths I went to get this bottle, because I sampled it after it was discontinued, not knowing that it was discontinued. I fell in love with it. Couldn't find a bottle anywhere. I bought up all of the samples in Australia that I could find, and I basically wore it a lot. And then eventually I was able to pick up a full bottle of it, and I'm so, so pleased. Hiram Green is a natural perfumer from Canada, I believe, and this is another amber fragrance. As you can probably tell by the color of the juice, this also has a hefty dose of oak moss in it, which I'm pretty sure the new version won't have oak moss. It might have some kind of substitute. It's resinous, it's spicy. It also has a beautiful vanilla in it, but it doesn't smell too sweet. I like to wear this one for yoga. Ambre Narguile I like to wear after the yoga class. This is one that I like to wear during the yoga class because it's a very natural smelling perfume. It feels very meditative and quiet and contemplative. Yeah, so this is very earthy, it's very mossy, it's got a sweetness in the base and a little bit of spice. It's beautiful and definitely worthwhile trying. If you enjoy natural perfumery, this is definitely a house you want to check out, I think, because Hiram Green just, I don't know, he weaves some kind of magic with natural ingredients. So that is Shangri-La by Hiram Green. In the number 6 spot is something that if you had told me this was going to make my top 10 a couple of years ago, I think I would have laughed at you, quite frankly. But sheepishly, I confess, I have really fallen for this fragrance. And I've also worn it quite a lot around Matt. Matt really likes this fragrance. So, well, he likes it on me, I should say. This is Miss Dior Eau de Parfum. This is the 2017 formulation. Surprised, yes. I used to think that this was so sugary sweet. In fact, I still think it's very sweet in the opening. What I never paid attention to was the dry down, because I never got to the dry down. I pretty much would always scrub it off before it had been on my skin for any decent length of time. This is really, really pretty. It's got a lot of citrus in the top, but not the sharp, zesty citrus that you get in freshies. This has a lot of orange-based citrus. So there's mandarin and blood orange and something else, some other kind of orange. So there's lots of orange in the top of this. There's also some bergamot and probably some, I don't know, some lemon or something as well. But then it also has some really beautiful, rich florals underpinning that. 2 types of rose, I believe, and maybe some jasmine as well. This also has Palo Santo rosewood in the base, and it is just one that really surprised me. I really did not expect to ever fall in love with this fragrance. But I do find that rosewood and the patchouli in the base mixed with those rose notes and a little bit of the hint of orange as it sort of stems through into the dry down just is actually quite a wonderful combination and quite intoxicating as well. So surprise number 6, Miss Dior Eau de Parfum 2017 formulation. All right, so we're into the top 5. So number 5 most worn fragrance this year was Ombre 114 by Histoire de Parfum. Look, I've had this bottle, this 15ml bottle, for several years now. I think I bought this back around 2018, 2019. I still have not really made that much of a significant dent in it, given that this is a 15ml bottle. But this is such a powerful fragrance. And although it's not loud, I wouldn't call it loud, but it is very encompassing. It has quite a lot of powder in it. It is just an absolutely beautiful amber. So it's a bit powdery, it's a bit spicy. There's also an aromatic tinge to this. I think it has thyme in it. And I would never have picked it as thyme, but you do get sort of an aromatic, dusty kind of vibe to it. The spices are not sharp in any way, shape or form. They just blend in beautifully, and it's just very soft and fuzzy, and it's just absolutely stunning. This is the one that I layer quite often with Desert Rosewood by Goldfield & Banks. I just think it's an absolutely beautiful combination to wear in the cooler months, or when you're just wanting a really comforting, enveloping scent profile. I love the woodiness that Desert Rosewood brings to the base of this. And again, that element of benzoin that you definitely get in here is just magical. I love it. And I don't know if I'll ever really need to have the big bottle of this, because I don't wear a lot of this when I wear it. I only spray it once or twice. But that's enough, and it lasts so well on skin or on clothing. And I apologize that the lighting is all over the place, but I am filming stupidly in the middle of the day today. So number 4 on the list is another one that nearly floored me when I realized that this ended up not only in my top 20, but in my top 5 is Delina Exclusif. Never in my wildest dreams would I have ever imagined that this would end up in my wardrobe at all, much less in my top 5 worn for a year. I wore this to bed so much during winter. This is not a fragrance that I wear out. This is purely a fragrance that I just wear for me because I want to smell this smell. I don't think this fragrance really suits me in terms of my personality or my style, but as a fragrance to wear at home for me to enjoy on my own, it is really, really good. And Matt really, really likes this one on me as well. He definitely, I have learned, likes the sweeter fragrances. So this is obviously a much heavier version of the original Delina. There is rose and peony and amped up vanilla, a little bit of an incense note in here as well, although I don't know if I ever would have picked it as an incense note specifically, particularly when you think about the other fragrances that I have in my wardrobe that have an incense note, and they're very smoky, they're very resinous. This to me is just very sweet with that rose peony profile and a lot of vanilla. I love it. I love wearing it. I think it's beautiful. It's just not something that I would wear out in public because I feel very self-conscious wearing it around other people because I just don't feel like this is really me. However, it is in the number 4 spot. Drum roll, please. So I have a feeling that most of you are not going to be shocked by what's in my top 3, but you may be surprised by the order in which they appear. So in the number 3 spot of my most worn fragrances for 2022 is Honourable Woman by Honourable Jane. Now I know that you all were expecting this to be up there. Possibly you thought it was going to be number 1 or 2. I did too, actually, because I feel like I wore this a lot this year. Oh my goodness. Okay, so cardamom, sort of dark green cardamom with some really beautiful white florals, non-distinct white florals, probably jasmine, I would say. The florals are they're very luscious, but not creamy necessarily. They do get creamier in the dry down. There's a very woody base that runs through this as well. Spicy, green, floral, enveloping, but woody in the dry down. Not too sweet. Just so stunning. I love so many of Honourable Jane fragrances, but this one in particular just really speaks to me. This just fits my personality down to a T. You know, when I talk about Delina Exclusif not being me and not feeling like it fits my personality, this is the polar opposite. This is right in there. This is my fragrance. However, I mean, it is also a great performer because this is the only bottle of this that I've ever owned, and I've had this for a couple of years now, and yet still it's not even halfway empty. So I don't need to wear a lot of this when I wear it. So that just makes me love it even more because it's also great value for money when you think about how much you probably wear of it and how long it takes you to get through a bottle. Anyway, so I'll stop rambling here. So that is number 3, Honourable Woman by Honourable Jane. Okay, so in the number 2 spot is a little bit of a surprise for me given something that I said about this fragrance a few years ago. This is Chanel No. 5 L'Eau. So this is a bottle that I bought early 2021 or mid 2021, I think, when my bottle of Eau Premiere was starting to get very low. Low was never my favorite from the Chanel No. 5 range. I think I said at one point that it was too citrusy for me. I preferred the Eau Premiere because I found that to be more floral, woody, and a bit more vanilla, I guess. So I found that to be more wearable. I just thought this one was way too citrusy for me. I've since changed my tune. I have really grown to appreciate this one. I do love to wear this when I'm exercising or something. I know that's really bougie, but it's just so fresh, it's clean, it's not too sharp. Like the eau de toilette can be a little bit sharp sometimes. It's not too dense or vintage smelling like the eau de parfum, but it's not as sweet as the Eau Premiere. And I think that I've really started to appreciate the fact that it was less sweet than the Eau Premiere, even though this year, or I should say 2022, was kind of the year that I really learned to appreciate sweeter profiles in fragrances. So this was an interesting one for me. I knew that I was going to wear it quite a bit, but I possibly didn't expect to wear it quite this much. I mean, that's pretty much all been this year. That is No.5 L'Eau by Chanel. And so it's probably no surprise to you that number one most worn fragrance for 2022 was No.5 Eau Premiere by Chanel. You know, I never thought of myself as really being a Chanel girl, but obviously I am. I have quite a lot of their fragrances. I really do enjoy their Les Exclusives line, and I just find Chanel fragrances to be fragrances that I can reach for anytime. There's pretty much nothing in the Chanel range except for Le Lion that I feel I couldn't wear on any given day. They're just so approachable to me, not price-wise, scent profile-wise. So this bottle is obviously empty. I think I actually featured it in one of my empties videos, if not the last one, the one before. I did finish this up this year. There's maybe a tiny little drop in the very corner there, which I can't get out. Oh, I probably could actually. Really beautiful, approachable version of No.5. If you're not a fan of No.5, but you kind of want to be, which I know is really weird, but that's just what we do, right? When people talk about stuff, or, you know, if something gets really hyped or is really popular, we all it's kind of like me and Delina, right? It's kind of like you want to like it, so you just keep trying it, and then one day maybe you like it, or maybe one day you find a flanker of it that you can appreciate. So this still has the aldehydes, but the aldehydes aren't quite as waxy. It doesn't have the really punchy florals that the Eau de Parfum has, and it doesn't have that sort of really vintage ambery tone to it. I wouldn't call it amber, but you know, that really vintage tone to it. This is much more modern smelling and a lot lighter, a lot airier, a lot sweeter. It's definitely sweeter compared to the other No.5s in the range. So that is No.5 Eau Premiere as my number one most worn fragrance of 2022. But before you go, I do have 3 honourable mentions that didn't technically make the list on my Airtable because I was wearing them at a time that I was being a little bit lazy with recording in the Airtable, which effectively translates to the last 3 weeks of December, because December was a mad month for me and I just didn't have the mental bandwidth. For that reason, they didn't technically make the list, but I think they would have been somewhere in this top 20 had I actually recorded them when I was wearing them. So in no particular order, because I have no idea what order they would have appeared in if I had kept a record of them, is White Sandalwood by Goldfield & Banks. Now do keep in mind, this dent is not all from this year. So I didn't, otherwise it would definitely be number 1. This is a bottle that I've had since 2019. This is the older formulation of White Sandalwood, which you can tell by the orange label. I wore this a lot in December. I did also wear it quite a bit on our holiday in Thailand in October. Well, basically since that holiday in Thailand, I have been wearing it quite a bit. It just works really beautifully in hot weather, but it works pretty much any time of year. This is a great all year round scent if you like woody scents. But just be aware that the scent profile of this has changed, I think, quite substantially. And I do have a video talking about the differences between this formulation and the newer formulation. They had to reformulate due to changes in regulations, and also I think some availability of raw materials. And I believe Dimitri, the owner of Goldfield & Banks, you know, tried originally to stay very true to the original scent profile, but in the end he just wasn't 100% satisfied with where they got to in trying to keep this exact scent profile. So they did make some changes to it. That was very long-winded, but White Sandalwood by Goldfield & Banks definitely got worn a lot this year, and I do think it would have been in the top 20 had I been recording my data. I'm sorry, the sun is going in and out. It's driving me crazy. The other one that I think definitely would have gotten a mention given where I got to with Ombre 114 and I guess the dent that I had made, which wasn't all made this year. This is 1472 by Histoire de Parfum. This is a really interesting fragrance. It's ylang-ylang dominant, but there is like this slight hint of smokiness in there. It's a little bit woody as well. It's gorgeous. It's very opulent. It's very perfumey. I really, really enjoy this. Even though it's ylang-ylang dominant, I do struggle to wear it in really hot weather. If I layer this with just a little bit of Baccarat Rouge 540 extrait, it does help to lift it a bit and make it a little bit more airy and not so dense, because it's quite a dense perfume. But it is absolutely stunning. If you ever get a chance to smell it and you like ylang-ylang, definitely recommend getting your nose on this just to smell it. Don't blind buy it, because I don't think it's a safe blind buy, but try it. Definitely try it. Anyway, that's 1472 by Histoire de Parfum. And finally, the other honourable mention, which definitely would have made this list had I been recording it, is Shalimar Millesime Tonka. Now, just to put this into perspective for you, this bottle I received, I don't know if it was a week before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas, but it was very close to Christmas. Somebody purchased this bottle for me because I was on a no-buy. She bought it for me as a gift. She surprised me with it, and she bought it because she was worried I was going to miss out on this one, because obviously it's a limited edition. It has now sold out, so had I waited until January to buy it, I would have missed out. So thank you very much to the beautiful soul who did that for me, and I feel very undeserving. However, I'm very, very grateful. I have worn this a lot, and I am going to go grab my bottle of Millesime Vanilla Planifolia, which I think I have spritzed maybe 3 times max, so it's pretty new, pretty full, and you'll be able to see the dent that I've really made in this. This is Millesime Vanilla Planifolia. I have barely worn this bottle. I had a sample of it. I did enjoy the sample, and I thought I would want to wear this, but as it turns out, the vanilla is pretty heavy, so it's not something that I want to wear anytime. So effectively, this bottle is brand new. So this is the space in the bottle that you start with when you first get a Shalimar. This is where I'm at with Millesime Tonka, and that's effectively in the space of about 3 weeks. I have worn it a heap. I wear it to bed. I wear it in the afternoon when I take the dog for a walk, even if I've been wearing something else during the day. I've worn it as my scent of the day. I do go through this a little bit more, because I will say that this doesn't last quite as long as this does. This is a lot more airy, it's a lot more fluffy. I feel like it does wear off a lot quicker than some of the other Shalimars. And so consequently, I do respray it a bit more than maybe I would the original Eau de Parfum. However, just the fact that I've been through that much in 3 weeks is probably a good indication that if I had been recording, it might have even been in the top 5. It probably would have actually. Maybe it would have even topped the list. So there you go. My last honourable mention for my most worn this year is Shalimar Millesime Tonka. All right, so thank you so much if you've made it this far. That was a very long list. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you aren't already. And I will see you in the next video. Happy New Year, everyone. Bye.